Cora, where'd the money come from?
The ranch is safe. The note's paid. Leave it be.
I stood in that church not knowing what I defended.
Then I'll tell you. Once. It came from me, Ethan. All of it came from me. I sold my mother's brooch. I paid your note. 11 months I turned that chip from your mouth. You never once noticed the cup was chipped.
Why did you never once look at me the way you look at that book? She asked it plain, standing in his kitchen, with the ledger held against her chest like a shield, and Ethan Cole answered her honestly, which was the cruelest thing he could have done. Because I never thought a woman like you would stay. There was a pale mark at her collar where a brooch used to sit, an oval of skin the sun had never touched, and he did not know yet what she had sold to keep his ranch alive, or how long she had been standing right beside him, waiting to be seen. But to understand how a man could be that blind, you have to go back to the coffee. It started with the coffee, every morning of that high Nebraska summer in 1885, and Ethan never once thought about where it came from. He would rise before the light, pull on boots stiff with yesterday's dust, and walk into the kitchen of the house his father had built, and his father had lost pieces of. And there it would be. The round-shouldered tin coffee pot, dented on one side, sitting warm at the back of the stove. A chipped blue enamel cup beside it. The chip always turned away from where his hand would fall, so the rough edge never met his lip. He drank it black and bitter, and grateful only to the day, never to the hands that made it. And then he went out to the fields and forgot the kitchen existed until he was hungry again. The hands belonged to Cora Halverson, and she had been making that coffee for 11 months. She was the immigrant's daughter, 4 and 20, come across the water from a country whose name the town could not be bothered to pronounce right. Her father, Henrik, had brought her and a trunk of good linen, and a name that meant nothing in Nebraska, and he had died of a bad winter chest 2 years after they landed, leaving her a girl alone with a foreign tongue and a way of looking at people too directly for their comfort. The town of Halford decided things about her the way towns do. They decided she was proud. They decided she was strange. They decided, in the end, that she was the kind of woman a man settled for, and not the kind a man chose. Ethan had married her the way a man buys a plow horse he cannot quite afford, because the work was drowning him and he needed hands, and because a preacher's wife had suggested it over a fence one Sunday, and because Cora Halverson had said yes before he had properly finished asking. He told himself it was a practical thing. He told himself she understood that. He did not know that she had loved him since the first time she watched him carry a lamb 2 miles through mud because it was too weak to walk, muttering the whole way and holding it like it was made of glass. The Cole Ranch was failing when Cora came to it, though Ethan would not have used that word. His father had run it into debt with a soft heart and a hard drinking habit, and when the old man passed, the notes came due like crows to a fallen thing. Ethan worked from dark to dark. He mended fence until his hands split. He drove himself the way a cruel man drives a team, and still the numbers in the ledger crept the wrong direction, and he did not understand why, because Ethan Cole could rope and ride and read the weather in a cloud, but he could not, to save his life, read a column of figures. Cora could. Back across the water, her father had kept accounts for a shipping house, and he had taught his daughter at the kitchen table by lamplight because he had no son and because he saw the quickness in her. Numbers laid themselves down for Cora like tired children. She saw where money leaked. She saw where a man was being cheated, and she saw, within a month of coming to that house, exactly how the feed merchant in Halford had been shorting the coal account for 3 years, trusting that no coal would ever check. So she checked. At night, when Ethan slept the dead sleep of the overworked, she sat with the ledger and a stub of pencil, and she balanced what he could not. She rode into town on the buckboard with a list and a flat voice, and she made the feed merchant, a heavy man named Pruitt, go pale and correct his figures while other men watched. She did it quietly. She did not tell Ethan. She only set the corrected accounts back in the drawer where he kept them, and let him believe the ranch was righting itself by the grace of his own 2 hands. She wanted him to feel strong. She had loved a proud man too long to hand him charity dressed as a wife. But Pruitt did not forgive being caught by a foreign woman in front of his neighbors. And that was the seed of everything that came after. The mornings went on. The coffee went on. Ethan would come in at noon, streaked with sweat, and she would have bread and cold pork laid out. And she would watch him eat and ask him small things, whether the north field was drying, whether the bay mare's hoof had healed. And he would answer in the short way of a tired man, and never once ask her anything back. He did not know that she rose 2 hours before him. He did not know that the reason his shirts no longer had holes was that she sat up mending by a candle she was careful to keep small, because candles cost money, and she was always counting. He noticed the results. He never traced them to their source. One evening, in the long gold of a July dusk, he stood at the east window of the house, the one that caught the morning first, and he said, without turning, "Ranch is coming back. I can feel it turning." And there was something in his voice she had not heard in a year. Not quite hope, but the ghost of it. Cora stood behind him, drying the chipped blue cup, and she said nothing. She wanted, more than she had wanted anything, to say it was her. To say, "I did this. I sat up and I fought Pruitt and I sold." But she did not finish that thought even to herself, and she set the cup down and let him have his moment, because loving him had taught her to give him things he would never know to thank her for. That was the shape of her. She was not a woman who begged. She was a woman who gave in the dark and asked for nothing in the light. And the town called that pride, and her husband called it nothing at all, because he never saw it. And there is a loneliness in that which does not have a funeral. Cora carried it the way she carried water, evenly, so it would not spill and shame her. Now, the brooch. Her mother had died on the crossing, buried at sea in gray water 3 days out from a land Cora barely remembered. And the only thing that came ashore of that woman was a brooch, an oval of worked silver with a small blue stone, the kind of thing that was worth little to a jeweler and everything to a daughter. Cora had worn it at her throat every day of her life. It sat in the hollow of her collarbone like a hand resting there. When the town saw her at church, that brooch was the one proud thing they could not take. And even the Reverend's wife, who disliked her, had once said it was fine. In August, the second note came due. The bank in the county seat sent a man on a good horse with a paper that said the Cole Ranch owed $140 by the end of the month, or the land would be posted for sale. Ethan read it standing in the yard, and Cora watched the color leave him. He had been climbing out of the hole inch by inch, believing his own hands were doing it. And here was the drop, sudden, right in front of his boots. He did not have $140. He did not have 40. The cattle would not sell for weeks yet, not until the buyers came through in September, and the note said the end of the month. "I'll talk to the bank," he said, which was what a man said when he had nothing. "They won't wait," Cora said quietly, because she knew banks the way she knew ledgers. "They'll have to." "They won't, Ethan." He looked at her then. Really looked, for the first time in weeks, and there was a flash of something ugly and tired in his face, and he said a thing he would spend a long time being ashamed of. He said, "And what would you know about it? You keep the house, let me keep the land." She did not flinch. She had a still way of taking a blow that made men feel it more than if she'd wept. She only looked at him a moment, and then she turned and went inside, and Ethan stood in the yard feeling like he'd wronged a friend, and not knowing why her silence hurt worse than shouting. That night she took the brooch off. She did it slowly, sitting on the edge of the bed while he slept, unpinning the silver oval from the collar of her nightdress, and holding it in her palm where the last of the moonlight found it. She pressed it once to her lips. Her mother's face was a blur to her now, gone soft at the edges the way the drowned go, but the weight of the brooch was exact, and she said goodbye to that weight in her own tongue, low, so as not to wake him. In the morning, the coffee was warm at the back of the stove, and Cora was gone to town on the buckboard before Ethan rose. She sold the brooch to the county jeweler for $60, which was robbery, and which she took without arguing, because there was no time to argue. $60 was not $140. But Cora had one more account to settle, and it was owed to her, not by her. For 11 months she had been quietly saving the difference, the money she'd clawed back from Pruitt's cheating, $1 here, 3 there, kept in a tin behind the flour, where Ethan never looked because Ethan never cooked. $80, coin by coin, the wage of her invisible war. She had been saving it against exactly this kind of drop, though she had never told him such a drop was coming, because she had not wanted to frighten a man who was already frightened enough. 60 and 80 made 140. She rode to the county seat, and she paid the note in full, in coin and folded bills, and she made the bankman write her a paper that said the debt was clear, and she put that paper in her bodice against her skin, where the brooch used to lie, and she drove home in the flat gold heat with an empty place at her throat and a saved ranch in her dress. She did not tell him. God help her, she still did not tell him. She meant to slip the cleared note into the drawer with the others and let him find it and believe, once more, that his own hands had turned it. But the town would not let it be quiet, because Pruitt, the feed merchant, had been talking. All summer he had been talking, and the thing he had been saying, to the reverend, to the men at the store, to anyone who would take a poisoned drink of gossip, was that Cora Cole rode into town alone and dealt in money like a man, and that no honest woman handled coin the way she did. And where, he asked with his heavy, sorrowful face, where did the immigrant girl get money to be settling debts? A woman with no dowry and a dead father and a husband too poor to buy her a ribbon. He did not say the word. He did not have to. In a town like Halford, the not saying was the saying. And so when Cora walked out of the bank in the county seat with a cleared note against her heart, there was a man from Halford leaning in the doorway of the mercantile across the road, and he saw her, and he counted the days it would take to get that story home, and he smiled. By the time she reached the ranch, the story was already ahead of her, riding a faster horse. It arrived Sunday. The Reverend of Halford was a lean, dry man named Aldous Prine, who preached a God of ledgers himself, sins in one column, virtues in the other, and no mercy in the sum. He did not like Cora, had never liked her, disliked her foreign quiet and her direct eyes, and the way she did not lower them when he spoke. When Pruitt's poison reached him, it found soil already turned. That Sunday, from the pulpit, Reverend Prine spoke of women who stepped outside the order God set for them. He spoke of coin that came from shadowed places. He did not say her name. He looked at her, in the third pew, where she sat beside a husband who did not yet understand what was happening, and he let the whole church follow his eyes to the pale mark at her throat, where a fine brooch used to be and was no longer. When a woman's finery vanishes, the Reverend said, soft as a snake in dry grass, and money appears in its place, a wise congregation may ask what was sold and to whom. The meaning landed. Cora felt it land, felt every neck in the church turn a fraction toward her, felt the particular heat of 40 people deciding a thing about her at once. He was telling them she had sold her honor. He was telling them the money in her hands was shameful coin. She sat very straight. She did not cry, and she did not run, though the wanting to do both was a live thing under her ribs. She kept her chin level, and she looked at the Reverend the way she looked at a column of figures that did not add up, with a still and terrible patience, and she said nothing, because she was a woman who gave in the dark and asked for nothing in the light, and she would not, even now, defend herself by telling the truth about her brooch, because the truth was between her and her drowned mother, and she would not throw it to these people. But Ethan sat beside her and felt the church turn, and he understood, slowly, the way a man understands a wound after the knife is already out, what was being said about his wife. And a thing happened in his chest that he did not expect. He did not doubt her. That was the strange part, the part he would turn over for weeks after. He did not for one moment believe she had done what the Reverend was letting them believe. He knew, with a certainty that surprised him, that Cora Halverson would sooner die in a ditch than dishonor herself, and the knowing was so sudden and so total that it frightened him, because a man does not know a woman that deeply unless he has been watching her all along, and he thought he hadn't been watching her at all. He stood up in church. He did not plan it. His legs did it. He stood up in the third pew with 40 faces on him and he said, in a voice too loud for the small building, "My wife's money is my money, and it's honest, and any man says different can say it to me outside." It was not eloquent, it was not even quite true, in the way he meant it, because he had no idea where the money had come from. But it was the first time in 11 months that Ethan Cole had stood between Cora and anything, and she looked up at him with an expression he had never seen on her before and could not read. The Reverend's face went white and then red, but a man's public defense of his own wife is a hard thing to preach over, and Prine had no more to say that would not sound like malice, so he closed his Bible and dismissed them, and the Coles walked out through a silence you could have cut and salted. They did not speak on the ride home. The buckboard wheels turned in the ruts. The high summer land lay yellow and enormous on every side, and the heat sat on them, and Ethan gripped the reins and did not know how to ask the thing he needed to ask. If this story has found a quiet place in you, if you know what it is to give in the dark and hope to be seen in the light, stay with me a while longer. And if these stories mean something to you, there's a place below to follow along, so the next one finds you too. Now, back to the road, and the two of them, and the thing that could not stay unsaid. It was in the kitchen that it broke open. She was at the stove. Of course she was at the stove. It was where he always found her. Back to him, hands busy, the round-shouldered coffee pot warming out of habit, though neither of them wanted coffee. He stood in the doorway with his hat in his hands like a boy. "Cora," he said, "where'd the money come from?" She did not turn. "The ranch is safe. The note is paid. Leave it be." "I can't leave it be. Half the county thinks." He stopped. He couldn't say what they thought. "I stood up in church and I don't even know what I was defending. So tell me, where'd it come from?" And something in her, 11 months of it, the coffee and the mending and the ledgers and the brooch, the whole long silence of loving a man who thanked a book and never her, something in her finally gave. She turned around, and she was not crying, but her voice shook, which was worse. "It came from me," she said. "All of it came from me, Ethan. Pruitt was cheating you 3 years, and I caught it, and I got it back $1 at a time. I've been keeping your books since the first month I was in this house. I balanced what you couldn't. I rode into that town and made a thief pale in front of his neighbors, and that is why he hates me. That is why he set the Reverend on me, because I made him give back what he stole from a man too proud to check his own numbers." He stared at her. "And the brooch," she said, and now her hand went to the pale place at her throat, unconscious, the way a tongue goes to a missing tooth. "You want to know what I sold? I sold my mother. I sold the only thing I have of a woman who's in the bottom of the ocean. I sold it to a jeweler for $60, and I put my own 80 with it, and I paid your note this week, so you wouldn't lose the land your father drank away. That's where the money came from. Not from any man. From me." The kitchen was very quiet. The coffee pot ticked. 11 months, she said, softer now, and this was the part that cut him, because it was not angry, it was only tired and true. 11 months I have made your coffee, and turned the chip in the cup away from your mouth, so it wouldn't catch your lip, and you never noticed the cup was chipped. You stand at that window, and you say the ranch is turning, like it turned itself. And this morning, in front of God and everyone, a man shamed me from the pulpit, and you know what hurt worse than that? You asked me where the money came from, like I was a stranger you'd caught with your silver. After everything Her voice failed. She pressed her lips together and got it back. "You have never once looked at me the way you look at that ledger, like it matters, like it's worth saving." And there it was, the question under all the questions, the one she'd been not asking for a year, and it came out of her at last, quiet and terrible in that hot kitchen. "Why did you never once look at me the way you look at that book?" Ethan Cole opened his mouth, and he did the cruelest thing. He told her the truth. "Because I never thought a woman like you would stay." She flinched at last. He saw it. He had said it wrong, said it broken, meaning something he didn't have the words for, and it had come out as the very thing that had been strangling both of them. "A woman like me," she repeated. "Cora, say what you mean. Her eyes were bright now, finally wet, and she would not look away. She never looked away. That was the thing the town hated, and the thing he had married. A foreign woman, a settled-for woman, the kind a man takes when he can't get better. No. You thought you married down, she said. You thought I'd be grateful, and instead I've been carrying this whole broken place on my back for 11 months. And you thought that was you. A terrible small laugh. I let you think it, that's the worst of it. I loved you enough to let you think you were doing it alone. She said the word by accident. Loved. She heard herself say it, and her face closed like a door, and she turned back to the stove, because she could not stand there and have said that word and be looked at, not by him, not now. Ethan stood in the doorway, and the whole floor of his life tilted. Because he was seeing it now, all at once, the way you see a landscape when the lightning cracks, the warm coffee that was never an accident, the mended shirts, the ledger writing itself, the note paid, the brooch gone from her throat, the pale mark he'd noticed 100 times and never once asked about. Every good thing in 11 months had a source, and the source was her, standing at his stove with her back to him, and he had thanked the weather, thanked his own hands, thanked God, thanked a book, and never her. Not once, not one time had he turned to Cora and said, "It was you, and thank you, and I see you." The shame of it went through him like cold water, and under the shame, rising, was the other thing, the thing that had made him stand up in church before he'd thought about it, that he did not want a hired pair of hands and never had, that he had been afraid of her from the first, afraid of how much she was, afraid a woman with that stillness and that spine and those direct eyes would look at Ethan Cole one day and see a failing man on a failing ranch and simply, quietly, leave. And so he had never let himself want her, because you cannot lose what you have refused to hold. He'd called it practicality. It was cowardice wearing practicality's coat. "Cora," he said, and his voice was not right. "Turn around." "No." "Please." Something in the please. She turned. He did not know how to say it. He was not a man of words. His words had already done damage enough for one day. So he did the only thing he knew, the thing he'd done his whole life when he'd hurt something. He went to fix it with his hands. He crossed the kitchen and he took the chipped blue cup off the shelf, the one she turned away from his mouth every morning, and he stood there holding it stupidly. And he said, "I'm going to buy you a new cup, a whole set. I'm going to," and he stopped, because he heard how small it was, how a cup did not answer a brooch or a year, and he set it down. "I don't want a cup," she said. "I know." "Then what are you?" "I don't know how to do this," he said, and it burst out of him rough and honest. "I don't know how to say it. I've never said a soft thing to a soul in my life. My father beat it out of me before I was 10, and every good thing that's happened to me since you came into this house, I gave the credit to somebody else, because I was too much a coward to look at where it really came from, which was you. It was you, Cora. All of it. And I knew it, somewhere I knew it, and I wouldn't let myself know it, because..." He stopped. "Because?" she said. "Because if I let myself know how much you were, I'd have to know how bad it'd hurt when you left." The kitchen held its breath. "I'm not going to leave," Cora said, very low. "I've never once been going to leave. I've been standing right here the whole time, Ethan, right beside you, waiting for you to turn your head." And that undid him more than any of it, because it was true, and because it had always been true, and because a better man would have seen it in a week, and it had taken him 11 months, and a small man's poison, and his wife selling her drowned mother to the county jeweler. He did not sleep that night, and neither did she, but they did not talk more either. Some things need a day to settle before a man can pick them up right. In the morning, the coffee was not made. Cora woke, and the stove was cold, and for one bad moment she thought he'd gone, ridden off from the shame of it, and something in her chest dropped like a stone in a well. She came out into the gray dawn kitchen, and it was empty, and the coffee pot sat cold and dented at the back of the stove, and the chipped blue cup was gone from its shelf. Then she saw the note, not a banknote this time, a scrap of paper in his hard, ill-taught hand. 3 words, "Come to the fence." She went out into the dawn. The high summer had broken in the night. There'd been the first rain in weeks, and the whole land smelled of it. That particular sweetness of first rain on hot dust that gets into your chest and makes your eyes sting for no reason you can name. The yellow country was washed and steaming faintly in the low light, and the sky in the east was doing something enormous and pink. And there, at the fence, the long fence he mended till his hands split, the fence that marked the edge of everything his father had lost and he had worked himself thin to keep, there stood Ethan Cole. He'd been up all night. She could see it. He was standing at the fence line with his hat off, and set on the top rail beside him was the chipped blue enamel cup, filled, steaming, the chip turned carefully away. He'd made the coffee. For 11 months she had made his, and he had never once made hers. And here he was, at first light, with the ranch washed clean around them, having risen in the dark like she rose in the dark, to make her a cup of coffee and turn the chip away from her mouth, because he had finally noticed it was chipped. She came and stood beside him. She did not take the cup yet. The rain smell was everywhere. "I don't have your brooch," Ethan said, looking out at the land and not at her, because he was still Ethan and could only say the hardest things sideways. "I asked the jeweler. He'd already sold it on, up the line, and he wouldn't say where. And I'd have followed it to Omaha, but I didn't have the money, because you spent it saving my ground." His jaw worked. "So I can't give you your mother back. I'll never forgive myself that you had to sell her for a man too proud to check his own books. I want you to know I know it. I'll carry it." "Ethan, let me get it out," he said, "or I never will." He turned the hat in his hands. "I stood right here yesterday morning before all this, and I looked at this fence and I thought, this is what I saved. This land. This is the thing worth breaking myself for. And then last night I couldn't sleep, and I came out here, and I looked at it again in the dark, and I finally understood what I'd got wrong my whole life." He looked at her then, full on, with those tired eyes. "This isn't what I saved. The land's just dirt, Cora. You saved it, and then I stood here thinking dirt was the treasure, and the whole time the treasure was the one who did the saving, standing right beside me where I never turned my head to look." He got down. Not gracefully. He was a big man and his knees were stiff from a night in the wet grass. But he got down on one knee in the mud by the fence, and Cora put her hand to her mouth. "I married you like a man buys a horse," he said, "and I've been ashamed of that since about the second week, and I never had the words. So here's the words, late, but I've got them now. I don't want a woman who keeps my house. I want you. I want the one who sat up nights over my ledger and never asked to be thanked. I want the one who stood in that church yesterday and wouldn't bow her head to that dried-up snake for anything, when a lesser woman would have wept and told them all the truth to save herself. And you wouldn't, because your mother was your own, and none of theirs. I want the woman who was already waiting. I've never in my life wanted anything the honest way, and I want you the honest way. And I'm asking you here, on my father's fence, in front of nothing but God and the morning, to let me spend the rest of it learning to look at you the way I should have looked at you from the first day. Will you have me, Cora? Not stay. Have me. On purpose." The east was full of light now. The rain steamed off the wire. Cora Halverson, who had crossed an ocean and buried a father and a mother, who had balanced the books and taken the town's shame without flinching, and sold the last of her blood to save a proud man's ground, looked down at that proud man kneeling in the mud, and she did the thing she never did. She wept. "You fool," she said, in her own tongue and then in his. "You beautiful blind fool. Yes, get up your knees, get up." He got up and he held her, awkward and hard and complete, there at the fence with the whole washed country waking around them. And she cried against his shirt, the shirt she'd mended, and he found, to his own astonishment, that his face was wet too. Ethan Cole, who hadn't cried since he was 9. After a while she laughed, wet and cracked, and reached past him and took the chipped blue cup off the rail, and drank. It was terrible coffee. He'd made it too strong and let it go bitter, the way she made his, and she drank it down to the bottom smiling, because he had turned the chip away from her mouth, and that small blind carefulness, learned at last, was worth more than any brooch. There are things that happened after, and they belong in the telling. The Reverend Aldous Prine did not get to keep his verdict, because Ethan Cole was not a man who forgot a debt, and the debt owed to Cora's name was the one he set himself to pay. He went with the truth, plainly, into Pruitt's store on a Saturday when it was full, and he laid the cheated accounts on the counter, 3 years of them, in his wife's clear, balanced hand, and he told the room exactly how the feed merchant had stolen from his neighbors, and covered it by whispering about the one woman sharp enough to catch him. He did it in a flat, carrying voice, the way Cora did things, and he watched Pruitt go the color of tallow, and then old Sorensen, a big, slow Norwegian who'd crossed the same water as Henrik Halvorsen and held his grieving silence all summer, stood up in that store and said that he had known Cora's father to be the most honest man he ever met, that the daughter was the father's own, and that any man who thought different had best not come to him for feed. It was the closest thing to a father's blessing Cora would ever get in Nebraska, spoken by a man who stood where her father should have stood, and the room went cold toward Pruitt at last, and not toward her. The town turned then, the way towns do, slow and then all at once, and by September, there was not a woman in Halford who did not suddenly recall having always thought Mrs. Cole a fine, clever sort, and the Reverend preached no more sermons about coin and shadow, having lost the room, and a preacher without the room is only a dry man talking. But the thing Ethan did that mattered most was small and quiet, and nobody saw it but the county clerk. He rode to the county seat and he went to the register where marriages and names are kept, and he had them enter Cora's name in full, the whole foreign length of it that the town had never bothered to learn, spelled right, in the permanent book, Cora Halvorsen Cole, so that 100 years on, when the two of them were dust under the same washed Nebraska sky, the record would show that she had been here, that she had a name, and it was known, and it was spelled correctly by a man who had finally taken the trouble. He never told her he'd done it. She found it years later, an old woman by then, running her finger down the register on some errand, and she stood in the clerk's office and wept for the second time in her life over a thing her husband had done in secret and never mentioned, because he had learned, at last, from her, how to give in the dark and ask for nothing in the light. They grew old on that ground. He mended the fence until his hands could not, and then their eldest son mended it, and the coffee was made some mornings by her, and some mornings by him, and whoever made it turned the chip away from the other's mouth, and neither of them ever bought a new cup, because the chipped blue one had become the truest thing they owned. And on the last morning of the story I want to leave you with, an ordinary one, years on, Cora stood at the east window that caught the light first, drying that same cup, and Ethan came in from the field and stopped in the doorway, and he did not go to the ledger, he did not go to the stove. He stood and he looked at his wife in the morning light, the pale mark still at her throat where a brooch used to be, and he looked at her the way, once, long ago, in a hot kitchen, she had begged him to look, like she mattered, like she was the thing worth saving, like she was the whole treasure and the land was only dirt. She caught him looking. "What?" she said. "Nothing," he said. "Just found the best thing on this whole place was standing right beside me the whole time. Took me long enough to turn my head." She smiled and handed him the cup. Chip turned careful to the side, and they drank the same coffee looking out the same window at the same wide gold country, and that was the whole of it, and it was enough. These stories are made with love. If this one stayed with you, subscribe, and let the next one find you. That is all I ask.